Good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Rick, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for July 8th, 2022. Today's title is Humbly in Love, and it comes from Galatians 5:13. So let me read that to you. It says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love." So we're called then to put aside ourselves. We're free. There is no greater freedom than the freedom found in being a follower of Jesus Christ. You are free from the world. You're free from the wages of sin and death. You're free from all sorts of stresses and angst that the rest of the world has to deal with on their own, but you have Jesus to see you through, so you don't really have to have that kind of stress and worry in your life. You have a guaranteed eternal freedom with God forever and ever. So there's all kinds of freedoms in there. You also have free will. Because God is free and we're all made in the image of God, so we're free as well. We're free as free can be. You are as free as the creator of the universe is. It's an amazing thought. However, with any kind of right or privilege comes responsibility, and with our freedom comes the responsibility that Paul talks about in his letter to the church in Galatia. He's saying don't use this freedom to indulge your flesh. Don't seek out your own purposes. Don't use what you have for just yourself. We're supposed to take a broader view of the world. We're supposed to have a much more biblical worldview, particularly about each other, and to the greatest extent that we can, to those who are not yet in the church, because that's our mission. So we are then to take what we have and serve each other. But it doesn't just say serve each other. It says do so humbly and in love, which means we're supposed to approach any given day as an opportunity. We have talked so many times about how we're supposed to consecrate our day, pray it up. We're supposed to be purposeful. We're supposed to have planned it out. We're supposed to have great intent and passion. The way we act and speak are supposed to be so very clearly different from the world that it must be supernatural. It must be a thing of God that people are interacting with, and those types of things. We are also supposed to be humble while all of this is going on. And we're supposed to be humble towards each other. That means we have to extend grace towards each other, forgiveness towards each other, understanding towards each other. We have to have empathy towards each other. And we have to have a willingness to sometimes put ourselves aside, what our current or most immediate needs must be, and serve one another, serve another, use what we have to better somebody else's position. Doing that shows the kind of love that Paul is talking about. It's easy to just sort of get along. Even in church, you can show up to the various events and services and participate a little bit and be nice to folks, and everything's going to be fine. But are you humbly serving one another, and in doing so showing love? That's where I talk about the engaged Christian, somebody who's not just a hearer of the word, but an imitator of the word, somebody who's not just a follower of Jesus Christ, but an imitator of Jesus Christ, somebody whose faith drives them to be humble and to serve others because of the love that was shown them and the love that they're returning to Jesus Christ because it was first shown. That's sort of an ethos of living. We have to orient ourselves differently because it's not what the world teaches us. The world, given the kind of freedom that we have, is just going to amass, it could consume, consume things, consume experiences, consume people, consume resources of all kinds, just more, because that's all they have. And that's the measure of life. The more of any given thing, the better. It's devoid of the love that Paul talks about, because without it, there is no reason to serve one another. There isn't any particular reason to go out of your way for anything if it's not going to get you something. And of course, that's not how we can go about having an effective kingdom. It doesn't move the purposes of God forward. It doesn't spread the gospel at all. So in thinking about serving one another, we need to be an example of a community that is different than the community of the world. When we take the time to reflect on what needs there may be, then we start with, of course, our family and close friends, and then we move it out to the community of believers that you belong to, and then go beyond that to see what you can do for your regular community, then the city, state, world, and so on, and to the ends of the earth, as the gospel tells us. In that, we demonstrate love, which is different than the world. We have to do this. And the reason we have to do this, it should be innate. It should be in your heart. It should be what you want to do because you are, in fact, an imitator of the gospel. In terms of reuniting folks to the cross, the ministry of reconciliation that Jesus left us with, they have to see our community of believers, the church that we call it, operating differently than what they know of the world, operating differently in love than what they've not been able to find in the world. Because when people see that, then what we say has traction, because they see it in action. They see the community, they see the church being what we say. If we don't do this, if we don't serve one another humbly out of love, then we're just another group of folks, just another social organization, just people who meet together under the auspices of Jesus Christ and being a church. So what I'd like you to do with this, Galatians 5:13, first of all, read it, contemplate, meditate on it, and see where you can fit in this scheme that Paul is talking about in terms of taking your freedom and curtailing some of it into humble service for others. And then in so doing, we can be that shining light in the darkness. We can be a community of believers. We can be a church. Listen, I love you. I hope you have an amazing day. It is a marvelous day to be a Christian. I'll talk to you next time.